Hello and welcome to a friendly new episode of the StudioMEcast. I'm your host, Peter Regan, manager here at StudioME. And if you like the look and sound of this podcast, well, I have good news for you, because you can book this space and others like it at our website at StudioME.me. Don't forget, we've just opened our new location in Oakland, The Meetup, a fully automated studio, which is the culmination of all the hard work that we've put together here at the studio so that you can make your content with ease. So, make sure you check that out. Link in the description below. Today, I am joined by David Ogrodowski. He is a writer and actor. If you have been to a film festival in Pittsburgh, then you've probably seen Davo. I'm convinced it's bad luck if you don't have Davo appearing in at least one film in your festival here in Pittsburgh. He has lots of wonderful stories to share, and also projects, which you can find those projects with links in the description below for just a small amount of the many projects that Davo has done. But now, let us begin with David Ogrodowski. Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure, Peter.
I've thought about having you on for a while, and it's one of those things where I'm fond of saying that if you it's not really a Pittsburgh Film Festival if David isn't in at least one of the films. Often more. Like, I say that all the time. But what I want to do, though, is because I've been around you, I've seen you on screen a lot. We've talked a few times, and I don't want this all to just be an origin story, but I want to get to know, like, how did you get started with acting? What was the first thing you did? Where'd the interest come from? Because you do it a lot.
I do. So, I try to do it as much as I can. I have an insatiable appetite for it, and I think it shows. I'm gonna come clean, and I'm just gonna give you the absolute truth. I went through a very difficult divorce when I was in my late 40s. And I had spent, 10 years with a person and having an identity in that relationship. And to me at the time, it seemed very random. But after it happened, and with a lot of looking back, I realized it wasn't just out of nowhere. To me at the time, out of nowhere, she just went to work one day and didn't come home.
Wow.
And I later found out that she got a promotion at work, and the promotion was huge, actually, very big, numbers, so to speak, and a higher role, and a move all the way out to Sunnyvale, California. And she learned about the promotion. She didn't tell me about it. And for about 3 months, she'd been planning secretly this trip to California and planning to walk out on the relationship. And she wasn't paying a bunch of bills I thought she was paying. And then, like you say, one day she woke up and went off to work and didn't come home. And it took quite a lot of phone calls to friends and everything to realize that she was no longer in the marriage, and that the marriage was going to come to an end. So, not to go dark right out of the chute, but that's the origin story, and that's what happened. So it caused me to shut down in life and not communicate with anyone for a very long period of time. It took me a couple of years really because when something like that happened, I could go much deeper into the story, but there's no need to. That's the crux of it right there. But when something like that happens, all of a sudden you don't know who you are. I didn't know who I was, and so I couldn't talk to people because I didn't know what to say to people because I didn't know who I was at that point. I already had this one identity, married guy, going to have kids. I thought we were going to have kids. Thought I was going to be coaching baseball. And then all of a sudden, not, who am I? So after a long period of time of not being around people and feeling, I lived way out in the sticks, way out in the country, in a very hermit-like existence. My dad's friend, my dad and his friend, they would go to the opera and the ballet quite a bit. The guy's name was Rich Norwood, since passed away. God rest his soul, my dad's best friend. He approached me and he said, listen, I hear that the Pittsburgh Opera is hiring supernumeraries. And I didn't know what a supernumerary was. And he said, you've been kind of hiding for a little while. You should get out. They need supernumeraries. You're about the right age. Would you be interested in trying out for it? And I said, well, all right. And I went and I tried out for it. And this was the very first thing I did, A, to break out of that dark period in my life, and B, that was theatric or, narrative-driven storytelling and so on and so forth. I was a drummer. I was a musician. I'd been on stages and stuff like that, but this was different, So I signed up, and they were doing a production of Billy Budd. And Billy Budd is a story about French and Indian warships. It's a very elaborate production. It's very convoluted and confusing, and I didn't know anything about it. Of course, I'm not going to pretend like I know about these things. I didn't. I was just a group of other supernumeraries, and just for what it's worth, a supernumerary, I'm sure you know this, but I didn't at the time, is just Italian for extra numbers, which is otherwise definable as a background extra. Just to be clear. And and they needed a lot of background extras, supernumeraries, to play slaves on the ship. And it's a story about the British aristocrats abusing the slaves that run the ship, because the slaves, that's how they functioned on the ship. They had slaves. And they just needed a lot of people to play slaves. And, of course, they also had opera singers singing stuff, but we weren't singing. We were just there to extra numbers. And the director came to us on the very first day. I'm trying to condense this because I realize I'm babbling here.
No, this is you're telling it well. Keep going.
Okay. And I'm not going to remember his name. Hans something. He was German. He was very German. And he walked up to us, and he had a small entourage of people, 2 or 3 professionals, and he was holding a bullwhip. And there was a group of us, and we were in an auditorium that used to be the Triangle Welding Building in the Strip District. There was a period where the Pittsburgh Opera was transitioning from, they had a little place on Penn Avenue at about the 700 block, I think 717, but they were transitioning to their new home, which is further in the Strip District, at the destination of which I can't recall. But so in the transitional period, they're at the Pittsburgh Welding, what used to be the Pittsburgh Welding warehouse. You know how Pittsburgh is. Sometimes you have a warehouse, used to do something, then sits vacant for a very long period of time, and so on and so forth. So he walks up to us, and he's got a bullwhip, and there's about 20-ish, 25 of us supernumeraries.
Wow.
And he approaches us, and he says, I hope I can do this German accent right. He says, who among you knows how to crack a whip? And now, I happen to know how to crack a whip. And the reason why is because I was at a Halloween party, and they handed out little toy whips that back in the day for Halloween, you could get them at like Kogo's. And they were just smaller, and party favorite type things. And they handed a bunch of them out at this Halloween party I went to. Nothing crazy or weird. And yeah, everybody just kind of figured out, you play with it long enough, you'll figure out how to make the cracking
or
noise.
smack yourself, right?
Yeah, or hurt yourself and your friends accidentally.
Yeah, right.
Yes, or get hurt by someone else accidentally. And always drinking involved. That makes it even better.
Oh, get the beer out of my hand. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I know.
Right. So you learn very quickly how to crack that.
I made one.
Yeah.
This is leather working.
Yeah. And I knew that. I thought, I did that once. I don't know. I guess me. And I realized I was the only one who raised their hand. And so he walks up to me and he says, prove it. And he hands me the bullwhip. Now, to be clear, what he has is nothing like the little toy party favor, that I goofed around with drunk once, And I took the whip and I held it in my hand. This thing's huge. I mean, a real bullwhip is a very, very long thing. It's about the size of a pickup truck lengthwise. And I'm like, okay. I'll give it a try. And I did the motion that I did with the little toy whip, and the same thing applied, and went crack. Okay. And nice. I will never forget this moment, because the whole entourage was in the warehouse at the time. The whole entourage, like the opera singers, the lead people, the, all the, the crew, and the supernumeraries. And that whip went, and then in that empty warehouse, you can imagine it just, and everybody goes, and I'm standing there on the whip. I shut everything down with it, and he's like, very good. You get the job. Go with them. And he sends me off with Randy Kovitz, if you're out there, Randy, and a couple of other people. They had makeup and costuming and stage brawling. I had to take stage brawling classes and whip classes too, so I could learn how to crack it over my head and be perform with it, and a little bit of acting stuff and all this. And I ended up being the slave driver on the ship. Now, the slave driver is not the singer. They don't sing. It's just like the hand-me-down person, the honcho, right? And this is what it led to. And this is why I became an actor,
Peter, if you don't mind.
Peter it is. And this is why I became an actor, Peter. The job required, they put me in costume and they made me look really scary. And I love the makeup. The makeup made me look like a real monster guy, know. And I've never seen myself like that. And again, you got to remember, going into this, I had an idea, pieces of who I was, but I didn't really have an understanding of who I was. I had lost a lot of hair, and I didn't even really see myself as having lost hair at that stage of the game because, I thought I was someone else. And so the job was, I walk out on the stage with the curtain closed and the audience is out there. And then I face the audience and I crack the whip at them. And of course, there's an energy that happens that I didn't know. I knew about it from being a musician, but I didn't know about it as a performer without an instrument,
Right, yeah.
And this energy I felt from that moment. And then the curtains opened up and the whole entourage was behind me. And of course, they're not applauding me, they're applauding them. And I knew that, but still I could feel their energy passing right through me, for all those amazing, talented singers and amazing people. And I will never forget that. And I remember thinking, this I want every day of my life. This is who I want to be.
Yeah.
And that's how I became an actor.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
How did it move into on-screen performance? Yeah.
So from there, very briefly, I talked to a couple supernumeraries on there. One of the guys' name was David Santiago. David Santiago, dear friend, also a great actor. We're going to work with him on a thing for AbSolved, I hope, when we get to church. But he told me, listen, sign up for some community theater. You can get community theater pretty easily. So especially around here in this town, just go in, audition. You'll probably get something and just get out there and do that. So I did 2 or 3, actually 4 or 5 community theater gigs. A little bit part guys. Nobody important, nobody special. But I loved it. It's all the same. Even just a little moment of it.
Right.
It's everything. And then I saw an ad for a team that wanted to participate in this competition called the 48-Hour Film Festival. And I signed up to audition. You know where this is going.
Yeah.
I think you have a personal experience with that.
Many good ones.
And so I signed up to audition for that team, and this was run by Edwin Huang and Nathan Fullerton and a group of other people as well. Names of which shouldn't be escaping me, Rhonda and those guys. And so I went in for the audition. They gave me a little script, and they liked what I did, and they brought me into their team. And I did 48-Hour Film Festival film with them. And I didn't know what a 48-Hour Film Festival was at that time. I had no concept of it. And we did our thing, as you know, you get the line and the prop and so on and so forth. And we shot it. Nathan Fullerton's a great filmmaker. He's just a great filmmaker. He lives incidentally not too far from here. He's a great person, great filmmaker. Doesn't do it as much as I would like. I wish. He was just a brilliant director. And we made a 48. And I asked him because this was back in the day, they were in the Hollywood. And I asked the team, I said, well, how many people participate in this crazy thing? This is nuts what you guys are doing. 48 hours to do this? This is crazy. And they said, oh, I don't know, probably about 20 teams or whatever. And I said, wow, that's impressive. So we got to the Hollywood the day of the viewing, and we were up for a couple of awards. Our first one was pretty shitty, to be perfectly honest. Sock puppets. Always fun.
Excellent. Yeah, right up there with finger guns.
Yeah, you know? Finger guns and sock puppets.
That's it.
Story of my life. Jeez.
Yeah. Good for any budget.
Right. Yeah, but
Prop
sometimes the most entertaining, really, you talk about those little finger shadows on the wall. Mm-hmm. That's how they did it around the campfire back in the day. Mm-hmm. So we got to the viewing, and I asked around how many teams are involved with this. Turns out there was 50 teams. And this is going back, I don't know, this might be longer than 10 years ago now. And I knew nothing about it. I knew nothing about filmmaking as an indie level enterprise. But the one thing I knew was my brain quickly calculated 50 teams. That means there's at least 5 or 10, 30 on each team that have the wherewithal and the ability and the equipment. That's the magic number right there. And desire to not just do it, but do it in a rushed fashion over the course of a 2-day event and turn it in on time with credits. And I said to myself, there's something here. There's not just in the 48s, but in this town, in the city of Pittsburgh, something's going on here. And I said, that was my next plateau. And that's how I got into film.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, it's great to see that the 48 is also growing, and that because that really just reflects that the independent film scene here in Pittsburgh is growing. And not every city has that. Like there are cities where there's one or two people trying to make videos and everybody else is doing something else, but it's like every year there's more and more people who are getting into it. And it's really exciting and awesome to see and be a part of. Now, when you were talking about being on stage for that opera and the energy coming through,
I'll never forget it. Yeah.
That's one of the big differences between acting on stage versus on set.
Yeah.
Right. Do you get that same energy on set, or when you what, or is it during the screening, or what appeals about filmmaking?
So I would say both, because again, I was in such a place at that time when I was doing that for the Pittsburgh Opera that I needed that pretty badly, what was happening there. And it felt so good that I harnessed it. I just locked it in. And I said, whatever this is, it's a tangible thing. If I'm doing a play, Charlie Brown and Snoopy, or, highly big theater, Chicago or whatever, it's the same thing. That energy comes from both of it. And then the same thing with if the camera's rolling and I'm saying lines, that energy is real. It's a genuine thing. And so when I'm doing film, I allow myself to remember that and the energy of that moment. And also whenever I'm acting, I try to be as present as possible, as absolutely genuinely here as possible in the character that I'm doing. And that happens to also exactly tie in with exactly the same feeling I had when I'm standing there holding that whip in front of that audience. So for me, I actually do feel it, even when, when you're filming, you rehearse and you do it like 5-6 times and then this angle and that angle and that angle. For me, I always go back to that moment. I'm standing there holding that whip, and that goes into the metrics of it all. But like you said, also, and this is why I'm such a hound at festivals. I try to get, and I would, to anybody out there as a filmmaker, do festivals, be parts of festivals. Festivals mean that much to me because I can be in the audience. I'm watching my movie, the thing we did, everybody else's movie, and what they did, what they have to say, what's precious and important to them, which is suddenly very precious and important to me. But also, I'm reading their energy. in the audience. And I'll be watching the movie and I'm, looking around, just watching to see.
Do you like it?
Do you like it? You feeling all right? You with me here?
Right.
Yeah. So I feel like in some ways it actually is the same stage. There, you can't can that perfectly though. You do that on stage, that's a different feeling altogether. But it's still the same thing, even if it's bigger and more verbose when you're actually doing it live on stage.
Yeah, and it's different, but ultimately it does come from like the passion that you have for acting itself, right?
I have a love of it, and I want to do it as often as possible.
Well, that's great. Well, you have been doing it a lot. You're all over my feeds,
I'm sorry.
Which is that's great, and because that's another thing is you post about the projects that you're involved with, like, and the accolades that they receive, which is wonderful. Congratulations on just any one of them.
Thank you.
But so that's a bit more of your origin story, so to speak. Let's talk about what you've been doing lately. And even lately, you've been doing a lot of stuff. There might not even be one particular project that we like that you could pick to talk about. But I think I'll say to kind of get into some of those maybe as examples. Yeah. Let me ask you about opera, 48-hour film projects, which probably some of them could be operas. I don't know.
Arguably,
but I've seen you in a lot of different genres. All right, like where it's a very straight drama or horror, or comedy. You were telling me before we start recording that there's a period piece that maybe has a supernatural element to it, perhaps that and is there a genre that, like, do you like genre hopping? Is there one that you really feel comfortable in?
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about that as, like, when it comes to the subject matter of what you're doing? How does genre play into how you feel about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say to back that up just a little bit, two quick answers, one very short one and one that answers it more directly, is when I was with, going back to the 48s and back to Everything But the Name with Nathan Fullerton, Edwin Wang, and those guys, Rhonda Libby, we were doing them for about 3-4-ish years straight, and I was loving it, and we were getting better at it. By the time we got to our third year, we were winning awards, and that was my first Best Actor award.
Oh, congratulations!
Thanks to Nathan Fullerton's directing. Thanks to Nathan Fullerton's directing. But something occurred to me and terrified me. As much as I loved them, and I loved them, I realized that if I kept doing it with them, then I was not going to grow. That I was always going to be within that fishbowl, that setting, that safety zone. And it feels great. It feels great, but I can't keep doing that. I had to go prove myself to the next person and do their thing, if I'm lucky enough to do their thing, and then move on and prove myself to the next person. And if I'm lucky enough, do their thing. And so I sort of actively made a choice. As much as I just want to stay here, this is such a great space. I got to move and go to the next level stuff. And so that became a thing for me. And that's part of the reason why you see me, like, I'm out there doing a whole bunch of weird stuff in different genres and everything like that. But getting back to your question, so I'm a idiot. I'm kind of a goofball in real life. I'm just goofy and an oddball, and I don't necessarily fit the norm. I realize that, and for that reason, comedy is actually not interesting for me to do because it's just too and I know everybody wants to say comedy's hard, and it is. Timing is everything. Timing is really, really precious, with comedy.
But timing is everything.
Yeah, but I'm such an idiot, and so I don't really have to try that much for comedy. I still have to. It's not like piece of cake. Hey, I'm funny. Don't worry about it. You know, not like that. But
no, I get what you mean. There's definitely different notes that are, some people just have a better instinct for.
Yeah.
It's like I've, just ever since the first home videos I was making, comedy was really something that I always, and the people who watched what I was watching seemed to think I had a handle on. Like they were laughing, with it. They got it, and that's when I started to branch more into dramatic stuff. I was really kind of nervous about doing that. I mean, I wanted to, right? But it was also, man, I know I can get people to laugh, but can I get them to take something seriously? Or to cry. And then I was, pleased with at least some of the results I got.
Of course,
get from that.
Great
but
filmmaker, obviously.
Shucks,
But no answers or buts about it.
Well, thank you. But comedy is one of those things that I would say I at least had a head start on when I began.
Yeah.
And so,
it's a useful tool.
That. Yeah, absolutely, because people love it.
Right. And that's good. How we relate, and it's also how we deal with things. Not everybody, but a lot of people, that's how we deal with things, is just got to laugh, It's because some things are so crazy, and you just got to laugh about it. And so I appreciate comedy a lot, But when it comes to doing it, it's not my number one thing. I've done a bunch of it, though, and, it's fun. It's fun. But given the opportunity.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm writing stuff, not always, but a lot of times when I'm writing stuff, the thing that comes out for me is definitely psychological thriller, and in that pocket, in the pocket of, and I know exactly where it comes from because I just told you about it. It comes from that space of not knowing who I was, and I think in life. There's a lot of people, there's always a gray area. We have a grip generally on who we are and what we're doing, what's going on. But there's always like that little space, that little extra space. I don't know. Do I really know what I'm doing? Do I really know who I am and what's going on? And so psychological thriller for me, if you can find a way to do it right and really dig the audience in, get them entrenched, get them to fear what you fear, to feel what you feel, to believe what you believe. So that then when you show them something that is not what you thought was real, what you thought you believed, they too are just as disoriented and confused and lost and concerned. Then that's a goal for me, and that's one of my highest interests. But I like to do drama and horror and all the the weird supernatural stuff.
But at least right now, the psychological thriller is really,
it's been a big thing. And two, we recently, just the last two things we did, not to start dropping names on stuff.
Please drop them.
Yeah, but the last 3-ish things we did. I did a web series, AbSolved. Some of the people out there might have seen. I do self-promote. You have to self-promote.
Absolutely.
You have to self-promote in this world because nobody else is going to. Nobody cares.
Right.
Psychological thriller. In the past 3, even 4 things that I wrote and did. AbSolved is a story about a Catholic priest. I used to be a Catholic. I was born and raised Catholic.
Can I ask how long you were?
Yeah,
Roman
it
Catholic?
was definitely my senior year in high school that I had sort of a revelation. I don't know if you want to call it a revelation. Maybe it was just a
could be an
smart
ironic
ass,
name
punk
for
ass
it,
kid thought he knew what he was doing, kind of thing. I always think of the Beatles when it was John Lennon, such an angry young man. Now I'm not so mad or whatever, but I was an angry young man,
So was I.
But so I think it was about 18. I actually told the priest in confession. I said, Father, I got to be honest with you. I don't buy it. Like none of this stuff. It doesn't make sense to me. I've come to the conclusion that none of this is real. And he was cool. He said, well, we all have to embrace it in our own way. And if, theology and spirituality is personal, and if your feelings are personal and important to you, that's all that matters. But only thing I would say is keep your mind open to it, is what he said. And he was very kind as I'm telling him I don't believe what he does, And I wasn't saying it to be mean to him. I was telling him my truth. I was in confession.
You're actually, you're performing a sacrament there.
Yeah. So that was about when I sort of, I don't want to
participating.
call it caught on or whatever, but that's when I started to follow down that belief system path.
Mhm.
But at any rate, it was through that knowledge of Catholicism and my understanding of it, and also my belief of dropping out of it, that led to the writing of AbSolved, which, incidentally, can I tell you a quick brief story?
Please, I love it.
Yeah, I was at this big web fest in New Jersey, the New Jersey Web Fest. The guy who runs it, if he hears this, is going to be saying, thank you for mentioning my thing. Neem Basha, beautiful man, very nice person. He creates this thing for all these little web people, and he has a pitch fest where you can win $100. You pitch your idea. It's like the elevator pitch idea, and I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I've never pitched anything before. What the hell? I'll give it a shot. So I was like, well, what if there's this like Catholic priest who witnesses a school shooting and it makes him want to drop out of the priesthood, and while he's doing that, he starts to see ghosts. Yeah, that's an idea. I'll pitch that. And honest to God, I wrote it, like scribbled it on like on a napkin right then and there.
Yeah.
And the line was already in line to do the pitching, and I was still, the wheels were spinning, you know, I wasn't caught up to it yet, you know, and I scribbled that down. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I did it. I did that at a pitch at the New Jersey Web Fest.
Yeah.
And I took second place.
Nice, not bad for an idea that
Nobody's
just
ever,
had.
right, I've never done it before. And I mean, I would have loved to have won that $100, but second place was, it made me think, hey, wait a minute, that's not a bad idea. And so then I drove, and it's a psychological thriller. It's a story about a guy who went through a crisis. I realize whose story I'm telling, you know? And
did you realize that immediately?
No. No.
That's spooky.
No, even now I'm still kind of getting caught up to it, but I realize it though. And it made him break out of his belief system. And while he's doing that, these fantastic things start happening. All of a sudden he's seeing ghosts. How can you be an atheist and have a conversation with a ghost? Figure that out, you know? And
I know some who would find a way. But
yeah, I'm sure. Don't worry. There's people that will find a way to do that. Yeah, right. Exactly. And so.
But that's a really cool premise.
Right. And the end of the story, driving, New Jersey Web Fest, 7-hour drive. I'm driving back from New Jersey Web Fest, and I've got my iPhone. Not this one. My other one. It was an iPhone 6 back then. And I hit record, and I started reciting the episodes on the drive back home. And I wrote about 6 episodes. Now they're only like 4 or 5 page episodes. You got to remember, a web series is a very condensed system, but it's like a bunch of little short stories. And I recited it, most of it, on the drive back home. And I got
like
back
this
home.
Is your writing process for it? That
was my writing process for that.
That's cool. Yeah.
With regard to writing process, that was a rare occasion where I got inspired and I spit a bunch of stuff out. But most of the time when I write stuff, it usually comes from a dream. Usually.
That's cool.
It's usually I wake up in the morning and I go, that's an idea. Wow. And then I start reciting. I always recite it into the phone, and then I listen to it to see what it sounded like, and then I write it all down and figure it out from there. But that's where fire came into existence. That's where Ember got birthed. And that's where the most recent one I'm very, very excited about, I just did with Jamie Lockhart. It's just going to begin its festival run. The Cocktail began. I woke up in the morning, the alarms were going off, and I grabbed the phone. I started reciting stuff, usually dialogue. I don't do a lot of descriptive stuff. I have the 3 or 4 people in my head, and I say each other's voice, spit it all out. And then I get to the end and I listen to it and I say, well, that's good. That's not good. Fix this, change that. And that's how I write.
When you're working through these ideas, you say a lot of it's dialogue, not a whole lot of description. Do you include any blocking when you're coming up with this stuff? Even stuff as simple as, and then he goes up to her, grabs her by,
The answer is yes. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, neat.
Yeah. In fact, again, it's always dialogue. I don't do the descriptive stuff. I was just working with a director recently. I'm not going to name names. And I told him, listen, I don't ever read the descriptive stuff. You could literally be stabbing me in the next scene. I don't know it. I want it to be that fresh. I only read the dialogue. I only want to know what it is I have to say so that I can have every ounce of plateau, every space available, so that I can put it here, I can put it there, I can put it there, and put it at whatever place I want, so that when I step up on that set, and then we do blocking, and I know where I'm standing, I know where I'm sitting, and I know I'm holding a gun or a knife or a candle. then that I want it all to be fresh and new.
So you don't like rehearsing your blocking so much. You
Never.
want to like get that and then just run with it.
No.
Do you like well, in that
Yeah.
same vein of talking then, do you like having in that way it's like you're about to start, do you like having blocking basically given to you, like, all right, Davo, you're here and you stand there and that, or do you like to work out the scene?
Okay, so two answers to that. That's a great question. When I write it, I got everything blocked.
Okay.
Like I know where she's seated, I know where he's standing, I know where I'm seated, and I know what important prop item is here, what important. It's all blocked in my head. It's weird, you know. When I write it, it's almost as if I'm not the one doing the writing. Somebody else has done some stuff, and I'm just translating it somehow. I don't know.
Sorry to keep stopping you here, but I'm curious. Is that also because you know, like, actually where you're going to film this? Because a lot of the time... Oh, you don't? Oh, no. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a location can have different opportunities for blocking.
In the case of the cocktail, I knew for sure where we were going to film it. After I wrote it, but it could have been that room, it could have been any room, but it was a room, you know.
Right.
I want it to be an interesting room, of course, you know, not just about 4 white walls.
And sometimes, I mean, that's what most spaces are, right? You know? But then, you know, there's sometimes you might even have an idea of what something's going to look like, and then you get to a location and you realize, oh, there's a ramp there.
Right.
And how do I incorporate that?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And that's why I try not to, I don't want to know it because, and in answer to your other question, do you prefer to have somebody block this stuff for you and then you do what they tell you to do? The answer is yes. Because I try to leave it as open as possible so that when you get to the set and you find out, oh, there's a wall there, you know, or, oh, there's a statue in the way, or this, or, oh, that tree is in the way, or, you know, there's a hill. If I take one step to the right, I'm going to fall down the hill, you know? So I try to save that for the set and only dig into the dialogue. Can I blather on just a little bit about
we've got
dialogue?
Let me just check our time here. So we've got at least another like solid 10 minutes here.
Okay.
This is going fast. I'm having you on again.
I warned you.
So,
I told you I'm a talker.
This is great. I love this. But we'll definitely have you again. But yeah, go ahead. Absolutely. Tell me this. A
little piece, part of my method, and I'm no genius. I'm no king at this. I'm not. I just, every day is a fresh new day. But one thing that is really, really precious to me, and the reason why I don't read the descriptive stuff, I'll gloss over it sometimes, okay? Especially if they tell me that there's a big dramatic thing that happens. You know, somebody's going to slit my throat or something like that. Or I'm going to be pushed into the river or whatever. You know, like if they tell me in advance and I know there's a big event in there, I'll try to get to that and navigate that a little bit. But generally, I try to stay strictly with the dialogue. And with regard to that, for me, this gets a little weird, okay?
Awesome.
Every word has a value to me, like every single word, like even the is and the and whatever. And I literally try to chart where they all fit and find as much space for them as I can so I can go up or down, left or right or whatever, wherever it needs to go so that it possesses value, real value in, you know, how I'm saying it or what I'm saying. And then what I'll do is once I get the lines down and I get everything figured out, a lot of times just a little technical stuff for what it's worth is I will record myself and the other actors' lines and I'll just record the whole bit, you know. So, you know, Jane's character, Bob's character, my character, hop in the car. I don't want to hop in the car. Hop in the car, asshole. So I've got all three of their characters. Now I'll just go through the whole bit, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll play each character's voice in my head, my own version of it. It's not theirs, and I know that. And I know that when I hear them, it's not going to sound anything like whatever I created because everybody has their own.
And even you might even rewrite some of it later, but you're getting through it.
Yeah. When I'm learning somebody else's script. Is
learning. Sorry.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah. 89% of the time, if I wrote it, I've got it memorized before I even show up.
Gotcha.
It's weird.
Right.
Then I'll record it without my stuff in it, and I'll leave space, and I'll say it in my head, you know, and that's how I'll memorize the stuff. And again, the descriptive stuff I keep out of it, okay? But this is the next thing that I do. This is the weird part. and I don't know, people think I'm strange, but I shared this with a couple of actors once, and they found value in it, I guess, is there's always more people in the room than the people in the room, or entities. Okay. Right now, I'm telling you this. I'm speaking to Peter. Okay. But in my delivery, if I want, I could speak to Peter's mom, and I could place her right there if I want. Okay. And maybe Peter's mom is very proud of her in my mind. So I'm talking to Peter, and I'm saying how much I appreciate your work. And I share, and I'm telling that to both you and also Peter's mom. And then I'll add other people into the room too. Definitely the audience is included in that, because it's never just a conversation between two actors. It's a conversation between two actors and the audience. And again, this harkens back to that feeling I got holding that whip on that stage.
Right.
And so I'm talking to Peter. And somehow or another, if I can translate that and give that to the audience too, I really enjoy talking with you, Peter. Somehow or another, I can kind of share that with the audience as well. And then I can be talking to God. Now, I told you my belief system, but still there's a value to that entity, that concept of an entity. And so I could be talking to God while I'm talking to Peter, So, I could present it to the so-called Almighty when I'm sharing it with you. And then I could be talking to myself. I'm talking to Peter. That's what I'm doing. I'm sitting here. I'm talking to Peter. And then I'll bring in a whole bunch of other entities that are precious or important to me. Like in the script, if there's a story, it's a story about my wife. My wife passed away, and I'm talking to Peter, and I'm sharing that with my dead wife who passed away. So somehow she's in there. And so, and I'll take that, and I'll push it to the umpteenth level. And I'll look at every single line sometimes and find a place to put it. Now, not always, to be clear. Like you can go insane doing that too much. Mm-hmm. But when I'm trying to deliver something, that's a method that I like to use to make it as real as possible.
Do you ever bring in anybody you don't like?
Yeah, absolutely. I play people I don't like. I've played I played a lot of villains, and I'm not a bad person, I like to think, generally. I have bad things that I do. I say things that are bad. I'm a little too egotistical sometimes, and too full of myself, and that's bad. That's not a good thing. So that's a villainous part of me. And so if I'm playing a bad person, I can tap into that and use that as a tool for my reality that I'm giving to people. But yeah, I'll bring in people I love, people I don't love, and so I use that as a tool, and it's a weird thing, and just thought I'd share.
That's a really fascinating idea. Yeah, it's really cool because, it's one of those weird things about acting too, that you can apply it in some ways outside of acting. Mm-hmm.
In life too. Yeah,
just talking to someone, even if there isn't a camera rolling, or if it isn't scripted or whatever. Yeah, but that's a really cool and it's one of those things that I people might do with just having empathy. Yeah, and being like, hey, this person's got parents.
Yeah,
or
a history, a reality.
Yeah, exactly, all that. So, but that's a.
Let me give you a rap thing, because I know we're at the end.
Yeah,
and I've got
absolutely.
a great little rap thing.
Please
and it
do.
harkens on what you just said. A great way to go through life. I like to think that acting is a great way to live life, because as an actor, I get a chance to be a bunch of different people who I am not, coming from a guy who thought he knew who he was, and then became a guy who didn't know who he was. And in this way, I get to live very briefly, very, very briefly, but deeply for me, very deeply for me, hundreds, thousands of other people's lives temporarily. And as such, with the very few years that I get on this planet, I get the chance to live more than just one life. And that means a lot to me. And that's why I like acting so much, and why I think acting is a great way to experience life. But to hearken on the thing that you pointed out, to be mindful of your ancestors and the people before you and the people around you and the other people in the room, so to speak. I took a trip to Easter Island.
Oh, cool.
And I even shot a little scene for AbSolved using my iPhone 14 for AbSolved on Easter Island.
Cool.
But what you learn, and what I learned on Easter Island, was so fascinating to me. And it's true. It's just obvious. It's right there in front of your very eyes. But until you just make the connection. But for me, I finally made the connection because I mingled with the locals, and also this was shortly after COVID, so the tourist was bad. And I was one of the very few, and they were so glad to see anybody, you know. And so I'm partying with the locals and everything. And I realized that those statues on that island it's just for us. It's like tombstones, you know. It's the connection with their ancestorhood. It's a partnership with those that maybe aren't here anymore, you know, physically for real alive, but are still present, still part of the program. You know, just like as I was talking about, you know, I'm thinking about different people in the room, and I'm trying to, you know, deliver the line to different people in the room. They live that for reals in their core existence. And I saw that there. Now, I had been doing this kind of thing in my head long before I went to Easter Island, but I went there and I saw that, and I was like, you know what, this is what they're doing here. And that's also, just like you said, it's a great way to live life, to be mindful of everybody else.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
There you go.
What a cool. Yeah, absolutely. This has been awesome. I have to have you on again, probably many times.
I will. I would love to.
Yeah, and but what we'll do is say to the people tuning in for this, thanks for joining us. But also, don't forget that if you look in the description, we're going to have a few links there of some of the projects that Davo has been doing.
Self-promoting. Do it.
Yes.
Self-promote.
So check it out. We'll have a few in there, and we'll have some more next time. Davo, this has been great. It's been everything I've dreamed, and I can't wait to do it again.
Oh, the pleasure was really all mine.
Oh,
you've given me a gift, this opportunity to just blather on about this stuff, because I don't normally get to talk about it.
Well, I love listening, and it's been a privilege. So thank you for being my guest.
It's a joy.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
you for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, subscribe, all that cool fun stuff, and check out our website at StudioME.me so that you can finally start that podcast I know you've been thinking and dreaming and hoping and longing about for quite some time, because of course you have. And you, gentle viewer, have won a free tour at StudioME in East Liberty. So call ahead and we'll set a time for you to come on by. We look forward to seeing you, and I hope you hear me again soon. Cheers.